Good morning, good afternoon, good last Thursday to Susie or Cozzy over in the wilderness of the west coast of America. It is match day. It is Liverpool against Spurs at Spurs, and things going relatively okay in our favour. Don't want to jinx anything right now because things are in action, so I won't say too much about that. But I'm joined by Gordo and Susie. How are you, Gordo?
Good morning. How are you?
Not too bad, Susie.
Good evening, Mecca. How you doing?
Not too bad at all. So let's get straight into the lineup, especially as we are outnumbering Suzy 2-1 for a very, very special type of club that me and Gordo belong to. There it is. None of that nonsense of putting the players out in the wrong order just by numerical squad number. 4-2-3-1 as always. There may be tweaks that we don't expect from Slot, Gordo, but no Nunes. Despite scoring there during whatever the last game was, I've no idea what day we are. It could even be last September for all I know. But this has Gakpo up front and Luis Diaz out left, but that may be not the case. They may switch positions because Diaz does a really good job up front as well. But what do you think of this team here? Van Dijk, Gomez, Trent, Andy. Robbo can't go bad with that. Alisson in goal. McAllister, Gravenberch, and Szoboszlai is a hard-working and yet still creative midfield. And, of course, Salah on the right is as strong as we can go right now, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. This is the best 11 available currently with selection. So I love to see it. I think as much as – there's such a debate right now between Costas and Robertson. I do think that Robertson is the man for this job at the moment. I think Costas, especially coming off of injury and not having full minutes under his belt yet, I think that would have been a little nervous seeing that one. But I think that was the biggest question mark before is who is he going to go to? Because we've seen kind of a decline in Robertson's play, and he's already got 2 red cards and made some costly errors for us. So I think this was the biggest question mark. But I am actually pleased to see Robertson there.
And so, see, before we go to you talking about bringing in people from the left, here's Brian as well. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Good morning.
So, see, on that lineup, I think that's a valid point Gordo makes about choosing between Costas and Robbo. But for a game of this magnitude, even if Spurs are in a very patchy, up and down vein of form, you probably do want the experience of Robbo on that side, don't you?
Yeah, and it also helps that Costas is on the bench. So, I mean, if things don't go to plan, we do have a competent left back to come on, and even when he came on against Arsenal, Costas did really well, I think. And then he did okay with the games that he played before he got injured. So I'm not too worried about the left. I mean, like I said, Robinson didn't play during the week, so he got a good break. So hopefully he's got his head straight, and he can play this game with a bit more confidence than he did against Fulham and the last few games where he's kind of given away. I think he was unlucky to give away a penalty and, unlucky to give away certain free kicks, and it's been found out a couple of times. But I think hopefully this break's done him good.
Brian, what do you think of the lineup? It's the strongest as we can go, and we've been talking for the past few weeks on all the various shows that the resting we were giving players was probably leading up to this period of games start with Spurs. We should have the freshest of legs as we can get in near the end of December, and not just that, but we have the best players we could probably have in the positions they're in, don't we? With the exception of maybe Konate for Gomez, but I would have that argument all day that Gomez is doing the job we would expect from Konate anyway.
Absolutely. I'm pretty pleased with the lineup. I was kind of briefly getting into on Thursday night right there. Well, if Jota doesn't start right there, then Diaz/Gakpo would be the next best thing. I think that Nunez off the bench is a lot stronger thing for us to have right there than having him start, because I think when he starts like there, he gets missing in matches sometimes. And I think that with him having an impact sub right there, it makes a lot more sense. But I mean, McAllister's fresh. Robbo's pretty fresh. I mean, Gravenberch is pretty fresh. I mean, I think we got a pretty decent, fresh kind of fit side. I mean, and once we go there and get Konate and Bradley back straight by the end of the month right there, I think we're going to be in some good shape.
You're muted. You're still on mute, Macca.
There we go. It's Sunday morning, and Mac has to go to work after this whole fraggle. What I was going to say was the 3v1 that we have against Cersei in the Núñez department. Let's say it's Diaz up front and not Gakpo. Although I don't think we lose out much in terms of them two versus Núñez as to who goes up front. I mean, he did the job we expected any forward to do. He got a goal, he got some shots on goal. I mean, you can't argue with that. But the speed and technical precision and probably the greater goals to shots on target ratio of either of Gakpo or Diaz in a game against a team that is capable of putting 4 on you, but also conceding 5 in the return. It's really important that these two do the job we expect from Núñez that he doesn't do on the regular, isn't it? If we get chances, we need to put them away and hurt them as quickly as possible. That's for Gordo.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I blinded you with science there.
You're right. Yeah. With the other thing, I think that the reason he doesn't get the start here, Núñez, is just simply because of the tactics that Ange usually plays. It's in your face, niggly. It's clipping at heels. It's basically all the things that set Núñez off are the way that the back line of Tottenham play. And if you play 90, you're risking to have him start because he can get into it. And if he doesn't get his chances, then we've seen him lose his head before. And this is not a game that we need anyone getting a red card. We've been there before, and we don't want to see it again. Also, just part of the reason I missed it was Everton is a result now. So that
I just saw that. Yeah. With that respect, Susie, City lost, Arsenal won, but Arsenal, I think, we're always going to be the long haul opponents all season. I think Chelsea will have some sort of drop coming over the new year or just into February, maybe. But Cosy said last week that going into this weekend on Thursday night, he said going into this weekend, like knowing what your opponents have done going into the game will tell you everything you need to do. Now, there's a little bit of a tautology on that because you should be going into every game to win.
Yeah.
But knowing that you can create even more of a gap should be all the motivation these players need today, shouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think the way we're set up and the way, Klopp did it when his tenure and Slot does it, we concentrate on our own game. We were just on the Newcastle result was just the biggest head loss for me. Against Fulham, I think we did well. And it was just a coincidence. I don't think it's this blip that we're going through. We played most of the game with 10 men and we still didn't lose that game. So I still think Chelsea are probably a bigger threat than Arsenal because I think Chelsea can buy themselves into playing into the top 2 and they don't care about FFP. They're just going to buy whoever. Yeah, they get Osman from Napoli or whatever. They're going to strengthen. So to me, they're still the biggest threat. But yeah, all we can do is just concentrate on our own game today. It's in our hands. You've never seen a Man City team like this during Klopp's tenure. We have to take advantage of this. Arsenal, Jesus come into a bit of form, but we've seen Jesus before. He comes into form, then drops off, then gets injured. So, but yeah, all we can do is just win our games that we've got, and don't worry about anyone else. We're not chasing anyone, and that's a good luxury to
have. Brian, in terms of the team, midfield is. I mean, it's a cliche. It's the most important area, but for a game like this, where I'm still at least having flashbacks to Klopp era Liverpool, where this game would be played on emotion more than strategy. But Slot has shown himself to be an excellent strategist. That midfield looks like it's designed to outwork Spurs and make them do a lot of running and put them under a lot of pressure so that they have to start pouring the defenders forward in support, which will hopefully leave the gaps for us to counterattack into. Are you happy with that midfield? Do you think that's the midfield that's going to work for us today?
Oh, absolutely. I think that right now with Slabosly is stretching is has the ability to stretch defenses at the moment. And I think that the work rate between Gavin Burke and McAllister are like top notch. I think probably right now that's probably the best midfield tandem right now in the league at the moment, in my opinion. But yeah, I think and with Spurs also being that they have a makeshift defense back behind them. I mean, we're having to rely on that to come up there to help them out. It's going to be it may be a pretty tough day right there for Spurs defense right there to handle our offense and our control in the middle of the pitch.
Now, with that said, let's look at the Spurs team. Fraser Foster in goal. That should give the attackers, Gordo, like dollar signs, the goal equivalent of dollar signs in their eyes. Archie Gray, Spence, Porro, Dragosin, he's okay. Bissouma and Sarr in the midfield. It's not screaming domination there, is it? It is screaming gaps.
Yeah, this is why that they concede so many. I mean, they literally got in a shootout with Manchester United, who were just held goalless at Bournemouth. Now, nothing against Bournemouth, obviously. I think they finished with that result. They're in the top 4, I'm pretty sure. So, nothing to shake a stick at there. But it has concede written all over it. And if you watched that Man United game, I mean, Fraser Foster, it basically gifts them 2 goals. And then a shot comes straight down the middle on the floor. And instead of just scooping it up, he decides to lash at it. And it just goes straight up in the air. And he kind of laughs about it. I just don't think he's a great keeper. And for, seeing who that we have up front with the form that Mo's in, even if Mo's not scoring, he's going to pick somebody out. And I think it might be a field day here. So that's the good part. But like you said, they're also capable of scoring for us. So that's where you need to worry about. Kulishevsky's having a fantastic little run here. Heung-min Son's back in amongst the goals and the assists. And James Maddison's starting to find his form too. So that's the scary end of it. It's the, when they draw they've got the Ferrari car in the front and then a horse-drawn carriage at the back. That's what this looks like to me.
That is a good point, Ricardo, but it also, looking at it and seeing as we talked about him on Thursday, there's a very Brendan Rodgers feel to that Spurs team, isn't it? Front 4, cut you like a knife. The back 6, whatever. The back 7, whatever you want to call it. You're putting the deep ends on because you're afraid of what you're going to be pooping out every time the ball goes near your 18-yard box. It's such a contrasting front and back of the team, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said, it's definitely very Brendan Rodgers like. That front 4, with Kula, Maddison, Son, and Solanke, is Gordon was saying that's a huge threat. Our defenders have a lot of work to do today. So Son can just pull out magic from anywhere, and Maddison, we just can't give away silly free kicks in and out area. But saying that, I mean, what I like about our team, like, we still got Nunes and Jota on the bench. So despite the front 3 that we have, then you bring them 2 on as well later on, or against like Fulham, and we brought Jota in, and we had like 4 up front. Albeit with Slot saying that Jota came on as midfield. I don't see Spurs living with our forward, but we need to quiet the Kula, Maddison, and Song. If we can keep them quiet, the game should be there for our taking.
Brian, do you think that there'll be any extra motivation for Solanke today? Because if I remember correctly, he left the right way. It was more of a case of, we can't give you the minutes and we don't want to stand in the way of your career. Thanks for everything. We hope you do really, really well and don't come back to haunt us. So, there isn't that extra needle that a player that thinks they should have been like the top. You can imagine Nunes being sold and then coming back and going, I'll show you guys. This is how good I was. And you didn't recognize. There doesn't seem to be any of that. So do you think he'll be extra motivated, or will he just be, I'm a Spurs player and I have to try and get goals tonight?
I mean, I think more aligned with Solanke. He's a professional. I think that he's more of a player right there who's, hey, I'm just going to go here and do my business, and I'm thankful for what you can for the club, what you gave me, but I'm a professional, so I'm just going to play my match. But yeah, I don't think Solanke's going to go there be like a player who's just go in your face kind of thing. That's not really his personality.
Gordo, we talk about the bench. We'll put up the subs in a second. But do you think this is a game that's going to be taken under control and not won, but certainly you're putting the sprinkles on the cherry on the ice cream thing by I don't eat desserts that often, so as fat as I am, this is all bread and pasta. But the cherry on the top of the sundae by the 60th minute, or is this one where we're going to have to look to the bench and go, crap, we're going to have to get something from the bench here? Which way do you think that'll go?
Even like looking at their string of results, like with the amount of goals that they can hit you on, and with the Robertson's current form, I feel like that is the leaky side, because Kulusevski is not only scoring, but he's also causing a lot of problems on the right side for Tottenham. So as much as I'd love for this to be a nice, comfortable game, I have a feeling that it is going to be one of these where we need to call on somebody from the bench. And honestly, if it gets personal, which it usually does against Tottenham, it gets a little argy-bargy. Having somebody like Nunes come in and like already be up for it is kind of it's exciting. It's also dangerous, but he's the kind of player that can get right into the stick, where sometimes you get a player that needs a little bit of time to catch up to speed, and they just get left behind in the first 5-10 minutes they're out there. Whereas Nunes he's gonna be watching and picking somebody out who he's gonna go after, which is exactly what you need from somebody off the bench. So I think this will be a game that we look towards the bench. And just to say that, like, it brings me a lot of confidence to see the strength in the bench, because that was something I feel like everybody felt Klopp was one of Klopp's weakest, was choosing the right people to come in off the bench and choosing the right people to come off. And it seemed like it was always like a missed opportunity when you made the changes. Like his team was set up the way it was and the way that we needed it to in the first minute. And then when he needed to make changes, sometimes he made the wrong one, where it seems like Slot really chooses the right guys to come in to change games and change formations. So it brings me a lot of hope when I see how strong that bench is.
Okay, as we're talking about that, so here is the benches. Quivin as sub goalie, but we have Kwanzaa, Tsimikas, Endo, Jones, Elliott, Nunes, Jota, and the only one that could be considered sort of, an academy player just in case is Nioni.
No.
Trey Maurice, what a great name that is. But that's a bloody strong bench for us today, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, well, I'm to Chiesa. Please tell me he's injured again. That bench, yeah. We've got Endo who can come and close up the game. Costas who can take Robbo if he's struggling. And then you've got Elliott, Nunes, and Jota. I think it's as perfect a squad as we've seen all season, pretty much. I don't know who else is injured. Apart from Chiesa, I don't know who else is missing. But I think that's our strongest squad, right?
Thiago, he's probably still on the books. We just don't know it. Brian, looking at the Spurs bench, though, I can see Reguilon and Timo Werner and Brennan Johnson as being like the big name subs. But after that, am I going crazy here and looking at that and going, they have nothing?
They don't have at the moment right there. They have so many injury problems, and right there they're going through a really bad spell with injuries right there. So basically, the bench players that they normally would have are actually on the pitch at the moment. So that's probably half the problem that you have with them. I mean, like I was saying earlier, right there, they have a makeshift defense right there because their starting guys, their starters are done at the moment. So that's the case of, like you said right there, Brendan Rodgers, when we went through that same spell with him right there, where we basically had to go and dig into the bench and play a bunch of different makeshift players like that back on his first season. I mean, I think that Ange is kind of on that same type of thing at the moment.
Gordon, for the kind of immensity of the occasion, because we're going to have the Champions League game still to finish. We're in a kind of new territory here, with still having Europe to play for before. We're in a great position, but nonetheless, the games still have to be prepared for, and they still have to be trained for, and taken into account in the training schedules. Is this a game where, if we win and win well, the players can't relax, but the mental burden of the Champions League games becomes a little bit less, and they don't have to focus on winning because we only need 1 point, I believe, to ensure that we're in the knockout stages, seeding whatever that ends up being. But the mental pressure of going in, if we were to lose or draw this game, it adds a bit more to all those other games coming up, doesn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. It's more of the locker room presence and the fan base, because like we've all seen it, we've all been fans long enough to have seen how just the overall atmosphere at Anfield can change the game, in terms of like, maybe giving up a goal in the first 15 minutes when we're really needing a win, and it can kind of get the pressure can definitely mount. And so when everything's going right, it takes pressure off all the other games, because yes, it is a different competition, but it's still the same locker room. It's still the same fan base, and you have to appease those guys, which is sort of what, on the flip side, was what Tottenham's going through currently is, here and there they're winning, and it makes all the other tournaments more important for them because they need those results. So yeah, it takes the pressure off a little bit and relaxes them and makes it a little bit easier to go into those Champions League games, not necessarily needing a win.
So see, our old mate Trevor says Case isn't injured. It's just a precautionary move, leaving him off. And in case he gets injured, I'm imagining that's right. But I mean, it's not good, is it? Like you need, for a player who just played, he should be on the bench, shouldn't he?
Yeah, but it's like I was saying midweek. I think there's a new buy. I think there's a buy just to appease us. They looked at the price, 12 million. It's not that much, and got him on a 4-year contract. So, we'll see what we can get out of him. It's just probably gone back to Italy to celebrate Christmas, and that's it. Like, if we have to rely on Chiesa to help us get out of trouble, then we're in trouble. So, it's more for Chiesa just to get back, get his own career just situated. So I think we're more important for Chiesa than he is to us. So I'm not too fussed about it. I would have liked to have seen him because, when he came in, you can see how much he wanted to play, for us. And, he just needs to get the experience of playing in the Premier League, the hustle bustle of it, the tackles that, players get away with and so forth. He doesn't, he needs to get used to the pace of it. So I think the cup games are great for him in a sense.
Now, having married into an Italian-American family, that antipast takes forever to put together, apparently. So I can imagine he's just got home to start that tomorrow morning. Brian, for the Spurs team, if you're going through a period of form where you look like you could win the World Cup all by yourselves, even though you're a club team rather than a country, and then at the other end, you look like you can't beat Dagenham on Monday, and you're going to get smacked by them. Are we the team you really want to face to try and get out of that funk?
Absolutely not. This is the kind of match you want to be playing Southampton, or you want to play Ipswich or somebody like that, just so you can work your way out. The problem with them is that they're a counterattacking side, and coming against a team that plays with the ball on their feet right there, it's going to be an interesting mix right there of whether Spurs can actually get that attack going with us. I mean, like Gordon was saying, that left side right there kind of has me a little bit worried on there. But I think that McAllister right there on that side right there will reinforce it. I'm really hoping that Diaz is up front versus Gapco up front right there, because I think that McAllister and Gapco have a better relationship about handling the ball and tracking back than Diaz and Robertson have. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want if I had a defense the way that Spurs have right now, I wouldn't want to play us. I wouldn't want to play anybody. I wouldn't want to play Chelsea. I wouldn't play anybody in the top 5.
This is Spurs though.
That's very famously said. I just want to point out that Slot's wearing a hoodie. He's going full Klopp.
Nice
vibes today. I just want to bring this back, Gordo. What Jamie said, that Chiesa is clearly not ahead match fitness of Elliott and Jota and all that. Now, I know you indulge in the hellscape that is known as coaching, albeit at the youth level, but these are things that you think about. You always think a little bit bigger if you're a coach, and you think about ahead. What's going to happen in the next few years? What do I have to do for these kids now to make sure that their next coach isn't going, who the hell coached you before? Because that's ridiculous. You're always trying to do your best for that. So even at the lower level, if you have a player who's coming back from an injury and you have a full bench, you're not relying on kids today, you've got the full bench, shouldn't you really want him to be there? Even if he has family things to go back to in Italy, everybody else has family things to go back to for Christmas who celebrate Christmas. It seems a bit like Chiesa, when he was coming in, was all happy. He was like Shaqiri, like high-fiving everybody, big grins on his face. But do you think that's because he saw Oxlade-Chamberlain and Thiago and Matip and just went, this is going to be fantastic. All the time off in the world.
These guys don't seem to care about picking up somebody that spends most of the time in the training room. No, I agree with you. I think, because you also have to look at it personally, and he might not be like, maybe they had a personal conversation and everything's squared away and both parties are on the same page with why he's not included. But, for me looking at it, you've got Trainioni, which I think everyone hopes that he's, a next man up basically and can produce stuff for us in the next 2-3 years. But that's next 2-3 years. I still think he's a little bit off the pace. He needs to put some weight on for sure. He needs to get minutes. But if you're Chiesa and you're looking at that bench and he's there and you're not, and you're supposedly match fit because he played minutes, that to me, like personally, says something about where the coach sees you in the pecking order, which, sometimes can have effect on the way that you play. Because if you don't think that you're the next guy in, or you think the only chance you're going to get is 15-20 minutes at the end of the game, and that starts to really weigh on you, and it does start to affect your performances. So I think that, picking when you have the full bench and when you have the full team roster and there's no injuries, that is a very difficult and tedious ballet that you have to play as a manager, because you are sending messages whether you like it or not.
So Z, that's a great point to segue into what I was going to ask you, is that Slot doesn't seem to take he doesn't seem to take issue with hurting people's feelings if they need to be hurt. He's not going out to setting out to do that, but he's Dutch. If you don't like the thing I have to say, it doesn't matter. I'm Dutch. I'm going to say it anyway. Do you think it might be possible that he's already not convinced by Chiesa, and he's one of those who, like Shankly, used to hate injured players, and he famously never talked to them. He wouldn't even acknowledge their existence until they were fit to play again. And there's many stories of injured players in the 60s. And bearing in mind, you had to have your leg hanging off in those days to be injured, where he wouldn't even go into the physio room, the treatment room, to see how anybody was doing. It's a more sharing and caring profession these days, football management.
Yeah.
But Slot just looks like he's not shy about telling you, that this isn't working for me already, and you're going to have to do a lot. I don't think there's going to be any soap opera drama about this. No. But do you think he's looked at Chiesa and going, it's not going to work for me? I need somebody who's going to be available 24/7 to play.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, I don't think it's no point in bringing him on the bench and playing him and then him being out for another 3-4 weeks. We want consistency, and that's one thing that Slot's shown in his in picking his teams, that he wants a consistent team, and it's like why he hasn't rotated that much. So to bring Chiesa on or have him as a first team player just to know that he potentially could be off for like 3-4 weeks after that, it doesn't make sense. I think it's just trying to ease him in. I mean, he said it himself on Wednesday when he came on. He had some poor touches, then he grew into the game, and I think that's just what it is. We just need him to start growing into where post February, March, when we may need him, back to near his best. That's when it will matter. Right now, we don't need him, so just ease him in. Just have him playing, even in the next Champions League game or the FA Cup game, whatever is coming up. Just ease him back in, getting used to the English game.
But couldn't you ease him back in by having him on the bench, even if you don't intend to play him, so he can get he can get the feel of how things go on the team instead of being divorced from it. He can understand what Scott is asking of the subs before, like what instructions they're going to get, instead of having to do it from the TV or on the plane.
Because I mean, we got 5 better options to come off that bench, so it doesn't make sense for him to travel down to London. I know what you're saying, like just as a team thing, but I mean, I think it's more valuable for Nioni being the next academy player that could make it, for him to get that experience, then Chiesa. Chiesa been and done that, with the biggest of clubs in Europe. So, no, I think we're potentially making a bigger deal than what it is for Chiesa. I think for Nioni, he might not come on, but like I said, he's probably the next best thing that's coming out from that academy, and these experiences are, I think, more valuable for him than Chiesa.
But just before I go to Brian, do you not think it would have been better to play Chiesa and then send Nioni off to KFC to eat as much raw chicken as he possibly could to build those muscles up? Because he still has arms and legs like pencils. I think that's what you should be doing. You should have had his Christmas dinner today, and Thanksgiving, and a bucket feast as well. Get some bulk on us, as Shanks used to say. Get a steak into you there, Brian. Before we go to the score predictions, Gomez and Van Dijk. I'm not worried in the slightest with that centre back pairing. You don't get the shakes like you did when it was Sacco and Lovren, and wonder which one was going to have the great game and which one was going to have the disaster, or both. Occasionally they both had a great game, but there was always a disaster in there somewhere. But we really have a reliable back two there, don't we? Like Van Dijk is the genius defensively, but Gomez, he just does what he does, doesn't he?
I mean, you can't say any much more good things about Gomez. Gomez is like the ultimate professional. I mean, he's a player that you can't replace because of because of different spots that he can fill. He can go left back, right back, and center half. I mean, so it's hard to replace a player like him. I'm perfectly confident right there. Now, if this was Klopp's side, I'd probably be worried right there because when Trent came through and made those runs, it left Gomez and other players out in the open. And I think that's something that happened right there with Konate. Why we had such a bad feel about Konate last year was because of the runs that Trent was making and how his position was. I think now with Gravenberch and with McAllister, you always have somebody back there covering up those spots. So I'm perfectly content right there with Gomez and Van Dijk right there. I mean, I think it's a little bit too soon for Kwanzaa. I know I just want to bring that in for a second right there. For Kwanzaa to go there actually be that much of an impact player. I think that we all rushed that judgment right there by his form at the end of last season. And you have to realize that he's still a kid. He's a defender doesn't come good until they're probably about in their mid-20s going up into their latter 20s right there. A 22, 23-year-old kid, it's not a world-class defender. It doesn't happen that way.
Except for me when I was playing, but that was only in the Sunday league. So talking about impact players, Gordo, we'll go around the houses. What is your score prediction, and who do you think will be the Liverpool Football Club impact player for the game?
I'm gonna say 4-2, and I think it's Jota comes in and totally causes. I think he scores one, but he'll cause enough problems that open up space for everybody else. So I think Salah has himself a game today.
Suzy, what's your score prediction, and who do you think will be the impactful player for Liverpool?
I think it'll be a basketball game. Like Gordo say, maybe 4-2. I think the way Spurs come out will dictate how we play. Because I think if Spurs come out attacking, and if they get a goal, I think that's it. It's just going to be like going toe for toe. I think, like Gordo was saying, probably Jota. I think we may need to rely on Jota to come on and get us a goal or two.
Brian, what's your score prediction and your impact player?
I'm kind of going with everybody else right there with this. I think this is going to be a basketball game. I think this is going to be a high scoring. I mean, I don't see us being able to completely stop the front line of Spurs, but I also think that back line of Spurs is so bad that I don't see that they can stop us either. So I'm going with a 4-2, and I think the impact player is going to be Cody. I think that Gakpo is a type of match right there that's really suited for him, and I think that he's going to go with Mo probably mixed in the middle of it right there. But I think those are my two players that are going to star.
I'm going to go 3-1 at Gravenberch. I think Gravenberch's going to be holding the fort down and doing one of those amazing jobs where it gets to the 75th minute and you realize he's actually holding this whole thing together. That's what my prediction is. I think you're right. I think you boys are right. We're not going to be able to stop them from scoring. It's just how many we can keep them down to. I would imagine Maddison scoring a free kick would probably be the most likely. Although now that I say that, Robertson giving away penalties also most likely. So we'll have to see how that works out. But nevertheless, onward we march, and the game will be starting very, very soon. We want to make sure that everybody is following us on the YouTube and the Facebook and Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter, and Blue Sky and Mastodon and Star Trek and also Starsky and Hutch. Whatever social media exists these days, we'll have those as well. And then join us on the Patreon for the extra goodies from the likes of Sir Z and Gordo and Kazi, Tmooch and himself. Can get our backsides in gear, us three as well. That the Patreon's good for the extra stuff. So make sure you're signed in for that. There should be a post-match show, so keep an eye out on that. It won't be me because Mac has to go to work immediately after the game. Boo, work, boo. But hopefully Liverpool, the Tricky Reds will give you something to go to. Gordo, Z, Brian, thank you so much. Enjoy the game. Have great weekends. We will see everybody on the next time for either the post-match or the Monday morning coffee or tea or energy drink. If you're me, I have to have a Red Bull in the morning because I don't like coffee and it's too early for tea. But we will see everybody else then soon. Have a good one and peace out. Enjoy the game.
Yeah.